I gotta be careful. I go down, the whole place goes down. No, I don't.
And good evening, everyone. How is everyone doing tonight? Please, in the comments, how is everyone doing tonight? Ken is putting me on deck to start this stream, which is a great privilege. And right off that note, Ken, how are you doing this evening?
Everything's very good. How you doing, Christian?
I'm doing well. Man, it's hard to believe it's September's here, and
that's right.
Many of us started school. Perhaps we're in high school or in college. Perhaps we're teachers like Stephen, potentially in the future. I hope to become one myself, and we start our years doing that as well. But that's awesome. And Marcus, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good, Christian. Thank you for asking. Hello, all the Train World fans and Thomas the Tank Engine fans out there. Good evening to you all.
And for those who don't know Marcus, he also works at Train World, the place in Brooklyn, in fact, and is also a major, huge Thomas fan all across the board. And you DM him at his Big Strong Henry Twitter account, he'll probably know the answer to anything Thomas related, as he's that also as avid a fan as any of us in the stream this evening. So that is just awesome. Just thank you for being part of this tonight, Marcus. It's going to be a blast altogether. And Stephen, how are you doing? The guest of the night. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I just want to thank Ken, you guys, and Train World for having me. It is a pleasure to come on the show. I've been a big fan of the whole show and the community based around this great retail store for a couple of years now. My best friend, Lance, got to be a guest pretty recently, and I'm actually guest starred in one of his Train Yard streams that he likes to do, talking about, what got me started in the hobby was Thomas. And it always is great being able to just showcase the fact that he really got me into such a great hobby when it comes to model railroading, and being able to talk about it with you guys tonight will be really fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Me too. And just altogether, it's just great as always. Once a month experience for us to have this Thomas Tuesday. The first Tuesday of every month, like we had a chance to do this. And I mean, Stephen, for those who don't know you, I'll just say he is one of the most educated, articulate, and talented Thomas modelers in the whole entire fandom that I've ever seen up to date. And just constantly wowing the fandom from his weathering techniques to the way he sprays matte clear, and just adds more of a realistic look to every single one of his models that he buys, many of which are Bachmann that he's going to showcase this evening. And on top of that, he's built many models completely from scratch on his own too, which is amazing. And some of these resources you'll see later on are some of the most affordable, abundant things and then he's able to make it look as realistic as anything else that you'd buy from the store. It's absolutely miraculous that you've done that. And I'll just say from my personal experience, when I discovered your YouTube account in 2013, even with those remakes you've done, I couldn't believe just how much time and dedication and patience there must have been, to make small figures and buildings and just those videos all together. And it's amazing just how much has progressed over time too, from then to the Twitter account. And to this day, I think the fandom is just constantly in awe from every single thing you've done, Stephen. And it's really an honor to have you on here this evening.
Yeah, shout out to anyone in the chat if you can say who remembers the Vision Scale Modeler blog. It's still up, and I've even updated with some new projects. I have a Patreon. I have my YouTube account with my videos and my Twitter, and it's just great. I mean, I remember watching your videos, Christian, because just like me, you started with a couple of Hornby models, and you would showcase to the a review of what you liked about them when you started on YouTube. And I remember watching you grow and being here now. It's pretty cool how global our community of people who love Thomas and trains and model making has really grown to where I've gotten to hang out with so many people in real life, to talking and commenting about stuff that we like about the hobby and inspiring other people. I met Marcus at Northlands, as well as you, Christian. It's been like a great blast being able to connect with people and really inspire each other, because I've been in the Thomas fandom for a long time when it came to like all the content creators and friends that I've met over the past couple of years, just because it's a great interest of mine. I like seeing the content that people create, whether it's making models to 3D modeling or recreating favorite music from the Thomas show, to like doing all kinds of stuff, even memes to animations, and even, you know, narrating their own stories or whatever. It's a great means of inspiration. And Thomas, to me, is very much like the flagship of the hobby when it comes to trains. You can meet anyone, in any guest in the train world, or anyone in general in the hobby community of model railroading, and they could have being able to be a parent or someone who started out with model railroading on their own and say, oh yeah, Thomas was what got me into the hobby, whether they read the original Railway series books or watched the TV show to even now. It's a great way to introduce people to grow the hobby and interest in the community. It's great and inspiring. It's fun. Really good stuff.
Absolutely. Sorry, for a second, did the stream just cut out for everyone for a quick sec?
No, it's working pretty fine for me.
Is everyone okay? All right. For a sec, I apologize if there was an awkward silence. The whole thing just like everyone just got circles all of a sudden, but I'm back now. I can see everyone, and we will progress from here. So I apologize for that.
Good.
Anyhow, Marcus, why don't you also talk about your experience with Thomas over the years and how that has contributed to like why you're still a fan today? Like what were the key components to Thomas that made you just never lose interest in it, like Steven, me, and everyone else watching tonight?
Well, now I'm just going to take up the whole rest of the stream because you asked me that question. But to keep it as condensed as possible, my journey with Thomas begins, I guess, from as long as I can remember. So I can remember from about 2 years old onward. My grandfather had to take care of me because everyone else was working. And he had to keep me occupied somehow. And I guess he found PBS, channel 13 or 21, put me in my high chair with a snack, and put the TV on. And I vividly remember the first story I ever saw was Thomas and the Breakdown Train. And because of my grandfather, that this crazy, eccentric fan of Thomas the Tank Engine exists before you today. And I, like most people who probably, you know, grew up with this and continued to carry it, I got made fun of a bit for it in school because I was a bit past the target demographic, although now we see there's no such thing at this point. And I just always carried it with me. And even if I tried to be away from it for a while, it always found a way to pull me back, reintroducing old characters that hadn't been seen forever, new merchandise from Bachmann of characters I never thought they would make, interviews and behind the scenes stuff coming out that just made me more interested, learning about other actors and actresses through being introduced to Thomas, such as Ringo Starr, George Carlin, Alec Baldwin, Pierce Brosnan, all the actors that I would watch other cartoons that they did voices in, Keith Wickham, Ben Small, Joey May, the list goes on. I love all those actors because, you know, show that made its mark because there was one voice doing everything, to then have a separate actor or sometimes one actor doing multiple voices like in The Simpsons was a big deal. And in my opinion, all those actors achieved the highest level of performance in what they gave. And my way of still being connected with it outside the show is the Bachmann merchandise, because it's a wonderful company that makes such a fine, detailed line of products, of engines and rolling stock and buildings, and the narrow gauge stuff just blew me away when they came out with that. I never thought that would happen. I always thought I would just never have an electric model of any of the Scarlovi engines. And now Peter Sam will be coming out hopefully next year. I would never have imagined that. So Thomas has always been something important to me. It's something that's been close to my heart. It's brought me joy. Sometimes it's helped me bring other people joy. And why not keep something like that in your life if that's the kind of effect that it has, not just to yourself, but to others? And that's why no matter what some certain people may have said to make fun of me because of it, I never paid it any mind in the end.
Oh yeah, it's like anyone who has Transformers or Gundam or any kind of model making thing, like military modeling. Everyone has like their special interest when it comes to making things with your hands. And it is incredible to me the amount of talent when it comes to all those different genres and interests where I can talk about anything with anyone and I can hear the inspiration and the joy that they have. There's nothing more powerful than the joy that you have with something. And if you can have that to have as a platform to inspire and encourage people and, you know, give yourself permission to do something that you really like. That's something that attracts anyone. And I think that's something to be said when it comes to making good content and even connecting with brands like we're doing with Training World and Bachmann in the past couple of times and all the other manufacturers that you feature here. Tops to everyone who's been on the show and everyone they feature because it really helps keep the model making hobby alive.
Absolutely. And Steven,
like
I've said before, go ahead, Marcus.
Just a shout out to Doug Blaine from Bachmann Trains, even though he won't be joining us in the chat tonight, because the amount of dedication that man has given to the Thomas and Friends line, going all the way back to when did it first release? 2001, 2, something like that.
Oh my goodness.
Big thank you to Doug Blaine for sticking with the Thomas and Friends line throughout all these years and continuing to make new stuff for next year, the year after that, and so on. There are not many merchandise lines that I really like have that much of an inkling to constantly continue to collect, but Bachmann always brings me back. And I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Doug Blaine if he sees this, if he hears this. I just felt it was appropriate.
Straight up facts, bro.
Well said.
Absolutely.
And thank you to Train for always carrying the Thomas and Friends product.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for buying them, Marcus.
And that goes for me too.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, just to go on Bachmann for a split sec, it's amazing just how much they've surprised us over the years with what they've come out with. You know, first they did HO, and then they announced a large scale in 2009. And then it was the resin buildings in 2014, and then the narrow gauge line in 2015, and then end scale in 2019. And it's like, what's next? You have to wonder what's next. It's just they're constantly surprising us. We'll see. We'll have to see about that. But it's amazing, like that they've constantly surprised us. And there's never been a time really where like things have felt old by Bachmann. In other words, they're always constantly coming out with products that fans love. And they're fresh new products, things that like you don't see every other manufacturer announcing. Like, I mean, they announced Daisy. Like, what other like the Trackmaster wouldn't rail or any of the other brands do Daisy, considering how popular of a character she's become. But Bachmann saw the opportunity and did her, and like look at how much positive reception there was from there. So yeah, but absolutely, it's amazing that to this day Bachmann has continuously just surprised Thomas fans like us, and just still doing it. And here's the hope for more to come in the future. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and Steven, I wanted to now go into your work because you have so many amazing things to showcase this evening. And I just want to hand off the mic to you. And if you want to go like one thing at a time, like everyone's here and like we are just super excited to see what you have to showcase. So
let's get started. Yeah. I'll show you my selection of models first, and then we'll go with the slideshow with pictures and stuff that I wanted to show up to the very end. Okay. Awesome. All right. So I'll start with everyone's favorite, Thomas. So this is like the very first intro to being able to customize a model. So basically, when it comes to being able to figure out what do you want to do if you want to make your model of Bachmann and any of their characters more realistic. And usually the very first thing that most people might want to do now, with a lot of Thomas fans are hooked on Twitter, and there are many content creators who make components that are 3D printable or have recommendations to different products. And with these, I'll just go one by one and just show you with each model what changes I did, what are the things that I added to the model to look as good as it does, and give you all recommendations of what you can do. So A big shout out to my friend Xavier at Xavier Light and Cole on Twitter. He designed the face that Thomas is wearing. So the face itself is a 3D print, and he has a Shapeways store. And basically, this face comes off, and on the very back, is held together with blue tack. The eyeballs are airsoft air pellets, 6 millimeters, colored white, and you can get them on Amazon and blue tack if you want to put them onto the faces. So I took the original Bachmann face off and put some sticky, some blue tack bottom on the top. So when I put the face on like this, make sure that it's straight, it will stick on nice and true and straight. The eyeballs are peelable vinyl pupils. A friend of mine cuts them on his vinyl cutter. He'll put the file in Illustrator and he'll make the really tiny size, depending on if it's like 2 millimeters to up to 3 millimeters, depending on the size of the inch's face. He'll print those for me, cut those for me. Okay, and I spray paint the face with Rust-Oleum chalked aged gray spray paint from Walmart or your craft store, and that gives it that nice gray color. I draw the eyebrows with Faber-Castell ink pens so I can get that nice sharp triangle profile that I had with Thomas. And the brake pipe and the lamp irons, I actually scratch built from 20 gauge craft wire, and I got that at the craft store. So I cut them to size and how I want them. And before I painted them, I took and cut strips of note paper so I can glue the end of it with crazy glue and wrap it around a couple of times for the base and a few of the parts like on the brake pipe, even on the back here. So when I'm finished and when the glue dries, I'll take it and put it on a stick of foam and spray paint the whole pieces black spray paint or black primer, and then make sure that that the holes where the plastic ones are from the manufacturer, I'll pluck them off and put the custom ones put in. And Thomas actually has Oliver's front headlamp, and the back tail lamp. I got a spare body and then plucked them off and put them on the front because I like the look of it better. The whistles are from, I think, Ibo Bro 4 on Shapeways, and I got them because I liked how nice the brass prints looked and a little bit more realistic compared to the ones that were manufactured. And by the way, he and Xavier Light and Cole have Shapeways stores, so if you want, you can go on to Shapeways and look them up, or on Twitter, and then you can look at them and buy them if you want to customize them for your rolling stock and support those creators. So those are the basic things I did with this Thomas. And I also gave him the flat matte finish by just masking the wheels with masking tape. And I sprayed Krylon matte finish from the drawing section of the craft store. That's where you usually get them, like say Hobby Lobby or Michael's or Joann's, whatever. I spray it in fine, even coats. And that's what gives it that really nice flat. It's almost not completely flat. It's like a very subtle flat satin kind of finish, which is great. When it's dry, I sometimes like going over it and adding a little bit of coal streaking. This is from Dave's Decals Weathering Powders. They are really great if you want to add some soot or rust or dust or any kind of model to breathe life to your model. Because if you look in Google, like the stock image of what Thomas looks like out of the box, and this almost looks like out of the show, like a real prop. So this is what my blue Thomas looks like. And for any of you who watched The Adventure Begins, I was so excited when Bachmann decided to release the LBSC Green Thomas, like Cool Props did. Cool Props is a prop replica company based in the Asia, and they're making the G1 replicas, the Gauge 1 replicas with Thomas, and they even do this too, like Bachmann. So what I wanted to do was to recreate a look for Thomas where based in a CGI look, what would he look like if he was a prop on the Thomas show in the model era? So another Xavier Light and Cole's Thomas face is that season 2 face with the open mouth design. I put that on this Thomas, and I gave him that really big hooped brake pipe. Same process, my own lamp irons, my own brake pipes. Oh yeah, the couplings are Smith's screw link couplings, and they you can get them on GaugeMaster.com. Let me double check real quick. This is GaugeMaster, GaugeMasterRail.com. And if you look at their search bar, just look for Smith's couplings, And I recommend getting, for the chain links, I'd recommend getting the LP4s for your freight cars, for your industrial locomotives, and for your coaches. And for the locomotives like Thomas, I recommend getting the LP5Fs. They're like the best, like all assembled. You can take them out of the package. And if you screw 2 holes, like you can take a pin vise and screw 1 hole on the top and 1 on the bottom, and then like use your craft knife to pluck out the excess plastic, then put it in and glue it. And then you've got 1 locomotive or any of the engines and rolling stock from your train set. If you want to make a whole consist that's chain linked or screw linked, it looks really realistic. Anyway, so with this model, I wanted to like do the same thing I did with my Blue Thomas. I gave him a nice varnish with the flat finish and went overboard with a bit of like the coal in the back. And I've had a real coal and glued together with white glue. The coal came from Hattons on hattons.co.uk. They're a great UK-based seller that sell all kinds of British rolling stock and locomotives and coaches and freight cars. That was great because I can make it look a bit more realistic, and to tie it down is put a bit of white glue thin with water and let it dry, and it looks a bit more realistic. So yeah, those are Thomas for the 2 models. Like if you could put them and compare, it's pretty cool having 2 looks at different designs of Thomas that make him look like, wow, looks like from the show. So what do you guys think? You like that?
Absolutely.
I got such season 2 vibes from the LBSC Thomas, like immediately.
Yeah, really good stuff. All right, I'll show you my next favorite character. You gotta love Edward. As the old Chad of the locomotive roster, I've always loved his character, and being a wise old engine is still one of my favorites from childhood. Another one of Xavier Light and Cole's faces. This one is one of his season 2, season 3 faces painted up to be like that. Basic, same thing. What I did with Edward, because he has, compared to Thomas, he has handrails. So what I did was I took my sanding files. I think there were 200 to 300, 400 grit, sanded the molded handrails. And then when I did that, I made sure that I gave the primer, the clear matte finish first, and then sanded it, because when it's flat versus glossy, not only does it take weathering, the weathering power is better, but it's also easier to sand versus the glossy finish from out of the box. So I did that, and I tried taking a couple of paint colors that were acrylics in the craft section of the craft store to see if I can mix a couple of blues and color match it to match the blue of the locomotive, and with very thin layers of watered down applications. I just went over where the sanding was to make sure that it was nice and evenly painted. And the same thing for the black where it meets his boiler. And when that was done, I took my pin vise again and just drilled the holes where the handrails would go. And I just made sure they were the right size and put them in. And then I took my handrails and I would put all of them in order to make sure that they were all straight when I put the I think this is musician's wire. Put it all the way through, make sure that it all fit together. Snipped it with my pliers and glued it all down with my crazy glue. That makes such a huge difference of doing twilight, making it more realistic. And I really love how this turned out. For the striping, I used some cut pieces of vinyl in red because now that I painted over it, then I can go over it with the stripes to be able to make add back the boiler bands to make it more realistic. Same thing with tender. The tender I didn't need to do that much, but what I did was add some streaks of coal with my weathering powders again and my brush, very nice and thick, because Edward's an older engine, he's used a lot, and while he's well kept, he's used a lot and works very hard, and sometimes he may pull a lot of freight cars versus coaches sometimes, and I thought that would be a really nice look for him. Added a Bachmann branch line dummy tail lamp on the very back and added in one of my scratch-built brake pipes and the LP5F screw-link couplings. So altogether, you got this.
Amazing. I'm just going to say something real quick. It's amazing how specific all these things are, and that you've memorized just specifically, oh, this is the exact type of coupling, the exact separately fitted lamp, like of this size, of this code, this number. It's amazing just how detailed you can get with this stuff. And I mean, what I love about these models so far that you show is that they're hybrids between the different seasons of the show. It's like you have a season 2 Thomas face with the LBC Thomas that appeared in the Brenner era, or a season 2 and 3 Edward face.
Exactly.
But then you have the Mac coat that looks like season 6 and 7, I would say, or season 6 and above. It's amazing, again, the possibilities of what can be done given how much specifics there are that you've already provided for the fans. So
yeah. And after a while, like, you get used to a lot of the questions. Like, there are a lot of things I didn't know that you can get those couplings. And I remember asking a couple of my friends and creators why I joined Twitter, where did you get those couplings? Where did they come from? And they told me where that they got them. And when I tried it out and added, like, now my whole roster has them. You can do that or not to, and you can pick any of the things that I'm using for your model inspiration. And usually, like, if I have a friend or creator who creates something, I want to make sure that I pronounce their name and I get their URLs right, because if anyone is looking, well, where do I get the couplings? Where do I get these faces? I want to make sure that I get those names right and all the links right, because I want to make sure you guys, if you want to do this like I do, you can get to say, oh yeah, Dave's Decals Weathering Powders. Google it, go to his website and get them. And that's like any of these things you can use in your model. And whatever look and style you're going for, these are a couple of models to show you what the options are. All right, so here's an interesting one. I've got Bachmann Henry. And this one of my new friends, Rex at Rexecutions on Twitter, he does a really good job of making models in 3D and for Roblox. He designed a couple of great faces for Bachmann's narrow gauge 009 characters like Reneus and Scarloa and Rusty, what's currently out right now, and some HO ones. He's done Henry, he's done Percy, he's done Toby. And for this one, I want to showcase this one because this is brand new. He released this on his Shapeways store. And I just love like how season 5, season 4, this face looks. Now, I did the same thing, like same process. Sprayed it with the matte varnish, sanding down the molded detail of the handrails. Then I color matched the paint of the green as best as I could, and then added my own. I think these I used Testors trim tape for the red ones. They don't stick as well, but they do get the job done, and they're very nice. And once you spray the varnish over them, it blends well with the flat look that I gave them. Again, the whistles and the valves are also from Ibo Bro 4. Now watch this. This is something very unique because there's a story like when you learn about the production of Thomas, there is a character you may all know that's called the Big City Engine. In the Railway series, and the story called Gordon Goes Foreign, it's about Gordon having an opportunity to take a train to London from the island of Sodor. And at the very beginning, there's a character that we all call the Big CE, or the Big City Engine. And he is an engine from the mainland, from the British Railways. So it's safe to assume that if they wanted to, on the Thomas show, if they wanted to make a custom model of them as prop, what they would have done is use the Henry model and then added a different face and smoke deflectors. Now watch this. And a big shout out to my friend Kyle Big Engine 87 who designed them, and Mads at Nano Norwegian for printing these for me. So I'll go ahead and take Henry's face off, okay? And I'll put Kyle's face on. So hold on, I'll do that, and I'll add the smoke deflectors. Now, smoke deflectors, I made these. Oh, hold on. I made these from card, just card paper, and then cut them and shape them into the size I want and put them on the side. Oh, let me get that face because it dropped. There we go. Make sure I got it right. Blue tack you can actually get from Amazon.com, and they're pretty cheap. You'll be able to get a whole packet of them to save for your modeling desk and everything. So with a few changes, like I'm just adding the one on the right, and now I'll add the one on the left, and I put it right behind his cylinder supports, which are right here. And there you go. From Henry to the Big City Engine, look how very different that looks.
Yeah. It makes you wish that they actually went the full mile in the television series, it was either season 2 or 3, right? That they were trying to do Gordon Goes Foreign.
Yeah.
And it just makes you wish, man, I wish they actually did that. And because it looks very convincing, even though Henry is a Black 5, which is a different class. But even so, it's like, I mean, maybe you just gave Bachmann another idea for the future, because that would be something I can see them doing.
Wouldn't even know it was symmetry on first glance. It looks like a whole different engine, and all you did was add the face and the smoke deflectors. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's cool because sometimes my friends, we may be in a conversation and we would be like, oh, what if we did something like this? And my friends were like Kyle, he hit me up and said, well, hey, Steven, I'm doing Paxton and I'm designing him for a game for our friend Speedy Skip, who does games for Roblox. He creates all these really cool games. He said, I would like to give you an opportunity to test print these faces. Could you do that and just keep them? It's like, yeah, absolutely. So like, any of these, if you want any of Kyle's faces, hit him up on Twitter or Mads, and you can commission him to get a whole set of these. So Paxton is a dear favorite of mine because Kyle wanted to make a face pack for him to see what he would look like for if he was a prop, not in the CGI series animated 3D, but as a model, a physical model for season 5. And here he is. He's still one of my favorites because I just love how charming he looks. So versus the Bachmann model, he got the face that he designed when he designed it in Blender in 3D. He made the face thinner, and he gave a whole original look that he came up with when he was designing this in Blender. He really made Paxton look so nice. And so for the model itself, again, I spray painted, like I gave it the clear matte and varnish. And because he's an industrial engine, I gave him a lot of weathering. So in between like dry brushing with my acrylics and the craft paints to be able to put some smudges around here, I use a lot of like the soot color of Dave's decals weathering powders right here on the back, up here on the top. And because of the matte varnish, it sticks on really well. For the Class 08 diesel characters, I like taking my pin vise again, the handheld one, and drill out by hand all the windows and add like clear plastic styrene to glue on the inside, and once it's dry, the glue dries, I'll put it. I unscrew the whole entire cab, do that, and then drop it back in. And once I give the clear matte varnish, I might go in add a bit more of the soot and the dust, so it looks like the windscreens are dirty, right? So and I also like masked around the chassis and spray painted the coupling rods and the counterweights. I think it was a terracotta from Rust-Oleum, and then they have a primer that's that color, and it makes it a little more flat, and looks really good. And again, I think for him, yeah, it's also Smith's LP5Fs for the chain link couplings, and the same thing for this one. I did the same thing, drilled a hole on the top, around the bottom, took out the excess plastic, glued it in, and that's it. Even out of my own brake pipes. Now I did the same thing with Ari and Bert. I shout again to my friend Jake at JJE09, who did these guys. So the Ironworks diesels, Ari and Bert. So the defining feature between these two is that Bert has stubble on his beard. And I actually created that. After I spray painted them the color that I want, Rust-Oleum chalked age gray. Once it's dry, I'll go over on his chin and add the stubble with my tentacle pencil. I think it's 0.5 millimeters for the size. And just go over to make it look like it's a bit of, half not clean shaven look to him. And with Bert, Ari is clean shaven. So that's the difference between the two. I love these guys because I weather them a lot because, they work at the smelter's yard and the scrap yard. They get really, really dirty. So overall in the chassis, I painted to be like a really nice rusty color for Ari. And for Bert, I think you can see I also was going over the counterweights with a bit of Sharpie silver, because when they first appeared in season 5, Bert had Diesel's chassis, and that's how it looked like in season 2 when he premiered. They made a whole brand new one for Ari. And that's the same thing. Like, these were used for dodge and splatter. When they, painted over them to be dodge and splatter and gave them custom faces, they had those chassis when they were making them around the scene, so they can make them to be those characters for Talon as a Magic Railroad. These guys, compared to Paxton, these have the chain link couplings, the LP4s, because they're industrial engines, and some engines may not have screw links, but chain links instead. Bill and Ben in real life have that too. So yeah, I love these guys because they look so good fully weathered, and I always have like an affection for really industrial engines because they get a lot more dirty and they work hard with their heavy goods. It's really fun to do. All right. Speaking of Class 08s, now I'll show two together. Diesel, and Duck. All right.
Boy.
Andrea, the underscore chairlord, did the Duck faces, and as well as Diesel, my friend Andrew. So shout out to them. They do a really good job with these. So together, doesn't it look like something from season 2?
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say, even like the pic you sent me for the collage, I was like, boom, Duck and Diesel trilogy season 2, right in the head.
Oh, yeah.
You look wonderful, Stephen.
Thank you. Now, the only difference I made with Duck, as he is auto-fitted, I wanted to, like, you always see them with the Marklin, like in the large scale, the G1 models they modified for the television show, they all recycled Marklin components because they're a German company that makes Gauge 1 models, and they refurbished them and kit bashed them to make the TV props. So you might occasionally see a couple of molded details from the different classes that they use for the models. So with Duck, there were a few on the base, like this one here and the one right here, which were for the brake pipes. So I wondered, what if I actually made the brake pipes for the auto-fitted, because they have a lot of them, so that when they work in tandem with the coaches, if the driver is in Alice and Merlebell, the auto coaches in the Railway Series at Duck Pulls in the books, what if I wanted to do that but for the TV series model look? So I drilled the holes, and in addition to adding a new brake pipe, TV series style, I added my own straight ones here and here. And after I painted them, I added a bit of silver to look like it's the link. You know, that when the driver puts it onto the coach and hooks them together, you've got the hose pipes dangling there. And the same thing with the back. Now, since Duck has a lot of handrails, I tried very carefully to like mask the letters and then sand it. You know, after I applied the matte finish, masked it, then took out all the molded handrails and the detail, and then like the hardest part was the angle. So the trick is, with my tools, I have like a cap from my paint bottles or any type of container that gives the ability to bend the wire and then make it curve. And then I use my pliers to bend the wire so that I can get the shape that I want. Did the same thing with Donald Douglas, and this was like the first time I ever tried it with Duck. So that was really a fun challenge. All right, now I'll show you. Oh yeah, and by the way, I also cut out the window of the door on the side and on the front and back. So that makes it a lot better. And if I want to, I can put a driver figure on the inside as it's driving along. Now Diesel, devious Diesel. I really like how he turned out, and I weathered him a lot like he looked like in season 6 for The World's Strongest Engine. So again, like he has a really rusty weathered chassis and then black counterweights and coupling rods. Hollowed out, like drilled out the windows so you can see inside of them. Add a dummy headlamp from Bachmann branch line and my own couplings and brake pipes, right from season 2.
Amazing.
Diesel's always been able to look so nice, no matter how, you know, he's presented on screen, and you did exactly that with your model.
Yeah, thank you. Totally devious. All right, and I think, yeah, that's all of the. Those are all of the Bachmann modified engines that I wanted to show before the slideshow. But I also want to give you all a treat because many of you all know from Isaiah, my friend Isaiah HK Porter, who you may know on YouTube as Tugster Intensifies. 2016, I collaborated with him some of the largest scale models that I did. We made a short video together where I just showcase all my large scale narrow gauge engines. So basically, I make large scale versions of the narrow gauge engines like Scarloe, Reneus, Duncan, and Rusty, and gave them a Railway Series look to them, but more in the style of their basis season 5. And Isaiah composed some music for the entire video and still on my YouTube channel. So shout out to him. Because here is Duncan. This is the one engine that I scratch built that I wanted to show you for this live stream that many of you know me for. So this is all made out of cardstock paper. It all is built around a Lego Power Functions chassis. So it runs on Lego Gauge L track. And when I turn the rods, these are all handmade using balsa wood and toothpicks, like for the edge right here. And they all go into a paper cylinder case. This was so much fun to do because I can make my own interpretation of how I want the narrow gauges to look based on all of my favorite like elements of the different periods. Duncan's got his prototype Douglas. His whole entire style like in season 5, I've always had a passion for like how nice the bigger cab, the lower windows, and the overall shape he had. But also he has all the different details from the prototype. All the bolts are peelable gems from the craft store. All the brass are craft wire from the jewelry section, gauge 16, gauge 18. Like the whistle is just one whole length of it, and I wrapped different layers of index card. And I think I went over it with some Sharpie, or I painted over it with my gold paint. And the manufactured plates and the number plates and the name plates, those are all just printed premium matte paper from my printer with and they were all designed in Adobe Illustrator. So between like the couplings, those are chains also bought from the jewelry section of the craft store, and buffers are all handmade with paper, and they actually move in and out like that. And I can take them off and put them back on if I need to, so I can make that bouncing action. And again, like the headlight, I can move and put it on a different side so I can indicate like the type of train it's pulling by putting it in a different position like that. You know, I like incorporating movable parts or things that are different. Now, here's a trivia for you. Duncan is a well tank as a character. And what that means is that his water tanks are not on the top, they're not on the side, but they're in the middle of the chassis. There are a lot of locomotives like Andrew Barkley and Orstein and Koppel that have this, or narrow gauge units. So there is a little spout on the side of his chassis where if you pop the little socket out, that's where the water crane lowers and puts its spout right in here. So that's where Duncan gets his water. Not on the back like Renee's, not on the top, but right in the middle. Millie has hers in the very front, but Duncan's has his on the side. So on either side, there's one side, or it's on the other side. That's where his is. So yeah, that's Duncan. And the face is all made from oven-baked clay. So I mix it with a little bit of, I make it with my hands, mold it with my hands, so using wood carving tools, and use toothpicks like for the mouth, and making all the parts like the furrow brow and the nose, all those different parts I sculpt with my fingers. Once I put them in the oven and pop it out, then I hand paint it with acrylics that I make and mix my own colors, and the white for the eyes. And the eyeballs are stickers versus the really tiny, tiny ones, or the HO ones. These ones are stickers, so I can peel them and put them in different positions for the camera. And again, the brows are made from just drawing in the mouth with Faber-Castell ink pens. Now, the last model I wanted to show you for tonight, that's physical. Shout out to my friend Matt at Enterprising Engine. This is his favorite character. Here is Proteus. Still one of my favorite underrated characters. God, I love this thing, man. I created him when I was working with the Thomas Creator Collective, which many of you know was a series that was run by Mattel that showcased a lot of fan content and creators for their series. I had a debut sequence for a Halloween special where I asked and volunteered to do a scene with Proteus, and in a whole week I made him. And if any of you want to know like how long it actually takes me to make a model, depending on the work schedule I have to amount of time I have on the weekends, it may take me a whole week to make a locomotive in the evenings, and then a couple of weekends, maybe about a month. That's how long it takes to make everything from paper and cardstock and make it look like, if you looked at this like right now, you may think it's like a brass prop, or if it's all made from plastic, but it's all like kind of like, it's like origami to me because it's all made out of paper. When I was younger, I used to make all my models like you see in the early videos on my YouTube channel. Those were my teenage years, and I was making it all from just looking at the screenshots and my VHS tapes and trying to see if I can make all of these as accurate as possible. And that's kind of like the whole message of this entire video that I wanted with what I want to show you with you guys. You can make so much look so believable and realistic with things that you have. And with the little things, like if you wanted to invest in the being able to have the chain link couplings, or actually support one of your friends and fellow creators from the Thomas fandom and get one of the faces, or if having just a face pack, just spray paint and work on them. You can do the possibilities are endless. And when at a time where I couldn't afford to make a whole brass model or do any of the advanced things when I was younger, even now I've learned so much from just making buildings from cardstock paper and making them by hand to now I can get to create them and modify them with using scratch build materials and then try to make them and paint them as realistic as possible. And that's just applying all the knowledge from like the model railroaders from Model Railroader magazine, blogs and forums like rmweb.co.uk in the United Kingdom. There are like a whole entire threads of advanced modelers and fine scale modelers who make their own buildings. They craft and edit, modify their own locomotives and rolling stock. It is incredible how diverse the model making community is, and to work on this and proud this from Thomas, that gave me a foundation to begin trying and making other ones. Because now as an adult, I've done a little bit of American model railroading. I've done a lot of British model railroading, some German, and I even did a little bit of Swiss model railroading. And whenever I'm at a show like the Greenberg Train Show in New Jersey or in Northlands, if I ever show an adult any of these things, Thomas is always a really great callback to any of those times where, like, yeah, I watched Shine Time Station as a kid growing up in the 90s, being a 90s kid, and reading the books by Owen Bell with the illustrations and popping in one of those VHS tapes. And like, wow, this feels like a world that you can actually go and visit and appreciate, enjoy, like the whole world that Thomas gave. You know, a whole generation of kids and adults who grew up watching or working for the railroad, like some kind of representation for like the fact that the Reverend Audrey himself, you know, he was a train fan. He drew and wrote the original stories for his son, Christopher Audrey, when he was sick. And inspired by that, he wrote his original stories. And as the years went on, all the railway fans, the history buffs, the love trains, had an affection as adults for the Thomas and the Railway series. And with Thomas and Friends now as a new show, a lot of the kids grow up in that age like I did, put out model railroading or railroad as a job. My friend Luke Ryan in Wales works at the Tylee-Clyn Railway, that the Reverend Audrey, like he was a railway pioneer, writing stories with the Scarloey Railway about like the very first preserved railway in the world. So I think it's incredible, you know, the Reverend Audrey wrote the stories for his son. And I think about when I was sick, when I was 6 years old, and my mom bought me the Bible, like the Thomas and the Tank Engine collection that has all the railway seal illustrations. Like, I want to make these models. So, tops to Bachmann and all the other manufacturers like them, like Hornby, who made these Tomex for Engage and now Bachmann. It can't be said how much of a huge like inspiration these characters in model form have been to actually bring younger people and adults alike to have a great model interest with model railroading and scratch building. It's incredible.
Absolutely. Just thank you so much again, Steven, for just showcasing all those wonderful models and your take. Always, you just speak with such finesse and such an articulate speaker altogether. And like I know everyone in the chat, and like we're just so grateful that you could share your wise words with us, really. And without further ado, because I'm just speechless. I just soaked it all in. I just don't really know what else to say other than say that your work is absolutely extraordinary. And
Steven is a modern day David Mitten. Just let it be said on the stream right now.
Thanks, man. I guess the one thing we can do now, we can go through the slides of pictures, and then we can just talk about whatever, engage with people in the chat, wherever you want. Now let's go over the photo slideshow I've got prepared.
Awesome.
All right, so many of you guys have even asked me, even on Twitter, like, do I do things with Gauge 009? And the one time I actually did, I took a 009 Rusty, and what I did was I took a face from another creator, and it looks a lot more like season 4, and popped it in the model replacement and weathered him up a little bit. There you go, that's it. You've got Rusty with a smaller face from season 4, that kind of style that I think it was Nicholas at Diesel 10 TV at the time. But Rexecutions, now that Diesel 10 TV isn't with us anymore, Rex has done a great job with making faces that look a lot like Rusty. So if you want them, go to his store and get them. I added another Bachmann branch line dummy headlamp on top of him, like he looked like from Rusty to the Rescue. And after I gave him that matte varnish, I went over the corners of the bottom of like where his foot plate is and the vents and added some soot so it looks a little bit dirty and a little bit weathered like he did in the prop. The van is from my friend Eldsbridge Productions and his Shapeways store. He makes a lot of the season 4 rolling stock, like the brake vans, the open wagons, the defused gunpowder wagons, and some coaches. And I gave it some Atlas N gauge wheels so that when it rolls on the narrow gauge track, it can work really well, look right behind Rusty. So that's pretty cool. So there you go, a little bit of 009 gauge. All right, and this one, I love sometimes when Bachmann actually takes inspiration from like Learning Curve, the Wooden Railway range, the Trackmaster range, the Tomy range, and other different types of toys take and play, and come up with ideas for the different types of freight cars. Because like the Sodor Coal Company, the Sodor Scrap Company, and the mining logo, I loved practicing making like fully weathered pieces of rolling stock with my powders and paint acrylic paint, because before I worked on all of the engines, I was learning by taking my Bachmann HO scale Thomas open wagons and painting them all with my acrylics from the craft store, and learning how can I actually paint over them to make them like how they did in the Thomas show. So as I did that, and when I got to learn a bit more of using pastel powder to the weathering powders a lot of model makers use, I tried that even with the Bachmann ones as they were when you buy them. So with the coal wagons, they all have really, really sooty paintwork. So I go over them with the soot color, and the same thing for the mining one. Like there's a bit of dark dust on the very top, some soot, and on the very bottom there's a little bit of rust around like where the brake pipes are and the brake shoes. And the chassis is a lot of dust and rust colors, and I would go over with some tiny brushes and paint where the rust bits are. All right, I can go to the next one. And I am so glad that Bachmann decided to re-release the flat cars, because they were such a hot ticket item and they were always so hard to find when they weren't released. They are so cool looking because everyone remembers them as Henry's log cars. So what a great marketing idea to not only reintroduce them, but put the Sodor Logging Company on the very side as like the decals, because everyone who wanted them can buy them. Now what I do, because many of them might not like the decal side on them, I'll take the decal remover that I have and I'll just remove it with a Q-tip. And sometimes I might re-spray paint them all a different color if I want to. But for this, I added Smith's chain link couplings, LP4s, and I added little hoops from using 20 gauge craft wire and making loops around the edges and then putting them into the side with drilled holes so I can put tie downs with just thread from the craft store and put any of the lows that I want inside them. So that's one example. You can go to the next one. Cool. And for this one, I think the first time this wagon was used and looked like this is the same thing as that one, but the supports are taken off. So I took my Atlas track saw and sawed them off and sanded it smooth. And I spray painted it, I think, with a Rust-Oleum camo dark brown. And on the inside, I went over it like I did with the other ones. I paint the inside the wood color. I think it's Folk Art Mushroom. That's one of my favorite wood colors. And after doing that, I went over it all with weathering powders to be able to make it look like there's a bit of rust. I think the first time this wagon was shown was when Thumper was introduced with Rusty the Boulder. Edward was pushing this wagon with Thumper right on top of him with a couple of skits on it. That was a really fun project. Okay, you can go to the next one. Okay, so I want to show you all like a little preview of like how I actually take a wagon and customize it. So I've used the Sodor scrap wagon as an example because those are a lot of fun. So after I unscrew the body, I will take my snippers, my pliers, and pluck off the supports for the international hoop couplings that come with the manufactured bottom of the base of the wagon, and then I sand it smooth with my sanding files. And then what I do is I'll pluck the molded couplings from the either end, and then I'll drill those two holes so I can make the slits on either end and put in the Smith's LP4 couplings on either end and glue them in place. And if I need to, I'll snip the supports from the bottom of the wagon off. So when I put them on and glue them back onto the very top, that way it will fit nice and snug once I put it back onto the chassis. All right, you can go to the next one. Once that's glued, then I'll begin like checking, okay, how does this look together? Are there any corrections I need to make? And then I'll prep for painting. All right, I can go to the next one. Okay, so once I take the models and I'll spray paint them with a clear matte varnish, then I'll begin painting by hand any of the rust colors for the brake shoes, the axle bearings, and like the handle on the side. And I'll mix a little bit of the rust colors, terracotta colors, with a bit of grays, a little bit of tan colors with gray and black. So I can make it a little bit rusty and old or used. Like for the scrap wagons, you may know that if they carry scrap, you might have a lot of the rust that's left from like the scrapped engines and pieces that they carry that kind of like fall down onto the ground and on the sides. That's what I think about. And if I need to, I'll go online and look for pictures of actual freight cars that are used for steel mills or for smelter sheds or for ironworks, pictures of rolling stock that were used with those companies, and look at them as a reference to help me with the colors that I choose for when I paint. All right, you can go to the next one.
Yeah. No, that pick though. Sorry, I'm just going to say something for real quick. But that pick in particular, the previous one right there.
Yeah,
it's just wonderful to see because it just shows like people watching it, and Marcus and me and Ken. It's like those are stock standard soda scrap wagons with the glossy finish, and it's like you look at it. It's a very simple, I guess, paint scheme you could say. But then look at how much those weathering tips and painting the interiors brown and just adding all the separately fitted details like the hook coupling so you can get the chains. I apologize. Yeah. I'm not as I don't know the specific codes like you, Stephen. But,
you're fine.
But it's amazing just how much that changes it from looking, I guess, semi-realistic to toy to just realistic altogether with the weathering and the matte finish. It's amazing. So I just wanted to say that.
Oh, thanks, man. It's incredible seeing the transformation from when it looks like out of the box, and as I begin to add a lot more of the layering depending on what the model is to make it look like it's from real life, like it's actually part of the real world doing the work or the jobs it's actually meant to do. So now for this one, now that I actually got the chassis how I want to be painted, now I'll go over the body with a bit of that weathering powder and fill it in like the planks of where the grooves are and the brackets that are part of the body, and begin putting in maybe some bit of rust colors, a bit of dust colors, and also do it on the inside too. You can go to the next one. Okay. And now on the layout, once it's finished, one thing my friend Thomas at Thomas Merchandise on Twitter, my friends Ricky and Lewis, who are prop collectors and who restore a lot of the props from the Thomas show. My friend Lewis, what he recommended, well, why don't you try adding a couple of different variations of the planks? Like one of them was replaced, just paint a couple of random planks a wood color. And I've done that a lot with different kinds of freight cars. And for these, I thought it would be perfect because on the outside or in the inside, I'll just find where it is on the inside and make sure it matches. It is such a really cool little detail to show, like, if they're really heavily used freight cars and if there are dents and marks on them when they're worked in the scrapyard, if there are ever parts of the boards that need to be, ripped off at the workshop and brand new one painted on, if they don't have the time to paint in the same color as the whole, body, like it's blue, it makes that really nice little realistic detail. Like now it's fixed and mended and put right back in the production line, and Ari and Bert go around moving them from place to place. So on the layout, now it's fully full with the weathering powders, and it's got some scrap pieces from, I think the company that makes the scrap pieces, they are by Goodwood Scenics from the United Kingdom. They make a lot of very cool details and cargo and loads for yards and different types of details. And shipped from the UK, they make great scrap detail. All right, you can go to the next one. So now, put to a whole consist, I think I've got like 8 or 9 of them right behind Ari. And this is just one example of how much I really like taking photographs or taking video clips of how my models, once they're done and how they look, I put them into the layout in the studio that I have, where I've got a backdrop where I can move it around back and forth on my 2 4x8 tables. You got all the scenery, you got a lot of the details and figures that I've made by hand or that I've kick bashed. So you can click on the next one. There's a couple I want to show for this one I think you guys would like. So there's Thomas and there's Edward. Thomas is in season 2 face, and got Edward looking out to the sky. And there's some birds hanging right in front of the clouds. And just, it's like the mentor talking with the student, Edward being the mentor as he is with Thomas. You can go to the next one. And this one, I've been working and practicing with a fog machine. My friend Kyle at Big Community 7 and Rob at Wooden Railway Reviews, they've been working with smoke machines either very recently or for many, many years, and they recommended me to try one. And earlier, like I think it was this year or last year, I got one, and with the smoke liquid, I tried putting it on the very edge of the tabletop, and with a heated cloth, with at the very end of like an old vacuum cleaner hose, extending it from the fog machine onto the layout on the edge off the camera with the cloth, it evenly disperses the smoke all the way over the top of the table, and it looks so much more realistic with making a very moody and atmospheric vibe to your entire display. And now with the Scrapyard, you've got Ari, who's collecting his wagons, and he's really enjoying the sight of all the scrap inches all the way around him, and appreciating his devious work. Now click on the next one as a contrast. And that's in the night. That's in the daytime, and this one is at the nighttime. You've got Bert. He is scared. He sees all the shapes of the old locomotives and rolling stock. And all of those props, by the way, I got them from Halden Yard. They make incredible resin casts of different types of locomotives and rolling stock that are perfect for scrapyard dioramas and layouts. So I got a bunch of them. There's some diesels. There's some of the Goodwood Scenics scrap line all the way around, and it looks perfect with the smoke falling like all the way on the very bottom of Bert's cupping rods. It looks a perfect like pre-Halloween visual.
You sure you didn't just go to like Sodor and like take that picture? It looks that real.
Dude, it is. I love doing this kind of stuff. I love photography, and as a fine artist, I love combining a lot of the digital media that I love from creating stuff from as an artist and putting them all into my model railroading. Because like with this, you got those cars, they are scared. They're like having nightmares when they're just waiting to be picked up or to be shunted. And you've got all those locomotives. So, adding a little bit of contrast or a little bit of color to make it a bit more dramatic. It's one of those things that as an editor for photography, I just love breathing life into these different photographs and just experimenting a little bit. But you can't beat practical effects, man. That's why I love the fog machine so much. Let's look at the next one. Let's see. Yeah, here's one of Gordon and Henry. These ones are just the very first set of really good faces that I got to practice with. They were a collaboration between Evan at Cool Dude 7208, and I think his name was Joseph at Thomas the Modeling Fan 96. Make sure I get that right. Thomas Modeler Fan 96. That's right. They've done a great job. They've done Thomas, they've done Percy, and they've done Gordon, and they've done Henry. So here's a picture of Henry that I showed you with Rex's face put together with their faces. Oh my gosh, seeing Gordon and Henry together is just a very classic pairing. So I like doing that. And then you've got the figures. All those figures like this high, this small, and they're made from Sculpey clay. All right, go to the next one.
Crazy.
There's one of my larger scale models. You got Rheneas in that Railway Series livery with the season 5 looking model. You've got Cora, the brake van. Now I think this is one of the last images I want to show. Hold on, sorry. Whew, that's about talking for a couple of hours. All right, so now there's Proteus, my model of Proteus, right next to my large scale Thomas. Now the only difference I made with Thomas, that just shows you like I planned originally to make all the narrow gauge scratch build images that I make like with Proteus to match perfectly with the large scale models that Bachmann makes of Thomas and Percy and James, etc. Because I wanted them to look like in scale when they're put up together. And I just covered the entire track with some ballast, local ballast. Now, Thomas, shot at my friend Isaiah at HK Porter, he took a toy that had a very season 3 looking face that he recast. And he actually used some expanding clay and actually made the face look a lot bigger so it can fit on the Thomas model. So I just unscrewed the whole entire face that has movable eyes, took the eye mechanism out, and took the face and popped it right on. he's done a couple of other characters. If you want to go to his Etsy store, you just look at HK Porter's website, on his Twitter page. And I think he has it on his profile. And if you ever want to ask him, he can be glad to give you like the link to the page. He's got a lot of really cool faces that he either made himself or modified from casts of faces from toys or from replicas. It really looks like it's a working model of Thomas and Proteus, as if like it's from season 10, like with the transfer yards. Yeah. Okay, and one of the last things I want to show were like the buildings. So I really was inspired by how nice it was to see Bachmann recreate a lot of the classic stations and buildings from the Thomas show with resin. And I hope they make more because they're really, really cool structures. And learning when I was younger how to make stuff from scratch, I tried applying what I was learning with making paper models to actually making these with plastic styrene. So what I did was use a combination of JTT Scenics brick plastic, and then cut them all in different shapes with cardstock, and then put the shapes together to make buildings like these cottages. And on the only one that's resin and store bought is the one on the far right and the one on the back. But everything else, the wall and the buildings right there are scratch built. You can go to the next one because there are a couple. This one showcases the process. So you see them unpainted where I cut and measured out where I want the windows to go with the ledges and the door openings. And then when I spray painted them and masked them for like the top and the mortar color, I then go over it with brush colors of terracotta, different variations of brick colors from the craft store. And I mix them together to make different variations of the brick where I dry brush it. For the shingles, I have like cut strips of cardstock cut in like slits so I can be able to peel and bend them so they can have some good shape and form to them. And then once I glue them in layers, then I'll hand paint them with acrylic paint so like it looks like they're real shingles for the scale. Okay, you can go to the next one.
Yeah, I'm just going to say it again. The attention to detail is absolutely miraculous, Stephen. It's just to see the process and how perfect each measurement is, because that's the thing. Nothing looks warped. Nothing looks crooked. Everything looks perfectly straight as it should. And that just all contributes to the realism of it. And phenomenal work. Wow.
He is David Vinton. I'll say it again.
Yeah. And I love lighting them up using the Wooden Sinks Just Plug lights. They have been great being able to just take the little sticky adhesive off and then putting them in the buildings. The just plug and play has been like a genius marketing strategy for Wooden Sinks, because you can take any sort of lights, put them in any of your models, and make it look believable and realistic. It's been great. Yeah. Now you can go to the next one.
Yeah. Just a quick question about that one. Did you have like a plastic sheet to make sure that, to stop the light from going to the upper?
That's a great question. I did. I just took a piece of cardstock and I just covered and put a floor so it divides the first floor from the top floor. And when I stick the LED light on the bottom, it's on the floor of the second floor, so it's like in the very middle, which is perfect. So that way, if you want to, you can divide your whole structure. So like if it's a big warehouse, you've got a couple of rooms that are lit up. Say if you're building like a whole set of Burnham docks, if you want to make the warehouses, you can make one door open and have it lit up and the other one closed and have it closed off so it looks like it's dark and not being used. Yeah.
It's stunning. Again, the attention to detail.
Thank you. All right, you can go to the next one now, I think. If I recommend anyone, if you want to actually try making scratch build structures, if you're learning from observation from any of the stuff like what Bachmann does, tool sheds are like the perfect starting point because they're smaller and you can practice very freely with making doors, the door openings, and make sure that they're all measured correctly. And by the way, all the windows, like you saw from the village structures and terraces, I make my own doors and windows with cut strips of cardstock. And I still do that to a certain extent. I incorporate paper to a certain extent. So I cut like the ledge on the inside and take the inside out, and I'll put the ledge, one here and glue it on the inside where you can't see the wall. And as I build the layers of either paper or with paint, that's what helps make the sides not bleed. So it actually looks realistic. And again, like with the brick texture technique, being able to just spray paint your entire building with the watercolor first. I use Rust-Oleum's camo tan colors. And because it's flat matte and takes paint very, very well with acrylic and weathering powders, by the way, I'll dry brush the brick color first, and then I'll go over with some lichen, like on the floor, like the base, you'll notice it's a little bit green. On the shingles, there's dust and some lichen or moss, and a bit of greenery or soot coming from like the top and the streaks. The metal building on the left that you may know from the Thomas show, I've used corrugated metal, like overlapping each other and spray painting it with different colors, and then going over with the pastel powder. So you can get as very detailed if you want, if you're working small. And then as you learn and get more confident with stations and buildings that are larger, work your way up, that really helps you when getting into it for the first time. Because the small really helps when you're just starting out. All right, I can go to the next one. Because then I began doing warehouses. So and for this one, it's a bit more complicated. I use like the ledges on the inside of the openings. I made them from the balsa wood, which I enforce all the sides. I glue them together with balsa wood, and that helps make the plastic a lot stronger so that it doesn't warp or bend or crush when I'm holding it in place. The balsa wood along the edges really helps. And if I need to, like this building can be seen on the inside, so what I do is build it in layers. So I've got the balsa wood enforcing it, but then I have to make it all the way around so that I can put the brick texture on the inside too. And that way you can appreciate, oh yeah, that's not an incomplete model. Everything is painted and looks like it should on the inside out, which is really good. All right, a few more. You can go to the next one. Okay, and this example of a really big one. This is a boiler house as seen from the Thomas show, and was used in quarries and in the coal mines or in the coal. The coaling plant where you've got the two big hoppers in the front and in the back, and you've got the conveyor belts coming from the openings. So that's an example of a really big building, and took almost all of the middle of my modeling table so I can be able to make it with the corrugated sheeting. And they're all from JTT Scenics for the plastic materials I love to use. Okay. All right, and like the final thing that I wanted to talk about was I had never thought in a million years when it came to the stuff that I love creating and sharing on Twitter, I have inspired Bachmann to make a new product. So I was showing how I wanted to weather and customize my branch line coaches, right? So I took my weathering powders and I was showing this with my tweets, and then go to the next one. So with this one, I took the one picture that I was taking pictures of with this composite coach, and I took Photoshop and I was recoloring it to see what kind of colors could I make that would be different, so I can be able to see if I wanted to. Well, like what if Bachmann made this color or another color? So if you click on the next one, you'll probably guess what it is. This is the museum coach that you remember from season 9. Toby feels left out, that story. At the very end, he pulls a coach that has these beautiful chocolate color with the cream little parts on the inside with the molding, and you've got one strip on the very bottom of the foot plate and the rims around the wheels. This always was a coach that I really liked. That was a one-off, but it was really, really beautiful. And this, mind you, was the composite coach, not the brake coach, because he had the observation deck. And I remember adding Bachmann, like, how nice would it be if this could be made? Because you already got like the whole molded parts for it. If you want to, maybe you can just repaint it. And like around January last year, I was on a drive to Strasbourg and doing a couple of things with friends. And then if you click on the next one, I get an reply from Bachmann. I think this is Trevor, who's managed the Bachmann account from Twitter. You can go to the next video, the next image, because they surprised me and said, how does this look? And they revealed the actual prototypes of the models. And this is something that we did not get in the Thomas show. Not only are we going to get the brake coach that's on the Thomas show, but the composite coach is something that the Thomas show never did, that Bachmann just said, look, we were inspired by your Photoshop edit, and we want to make this because this is something we could do. And this was blowing up like crazy. And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, never in a million years I think I would actually inspire actual product from Bachmann. And that was really cool. And we're going to be getting it like in a year or so. We're going to be getting this for this stuff that Bachmann's making. And I think you can already pre-order it if you want on Train World. This is on pre-order. So, oh my gosh, like congratulations to Bachmann. Thank you so much. And to Doug, like all the guys at Bachmann who did this, I really, really appreciate it because it's always fun to engage with fans and with the brand when it comes to Twitter. And whenever it's like recommending a product or it's just something that many people want, Bachmann Stepney or Bachmann Boko or Bachmann Stanley, there are a lot of cool suggestions that people have shared that I really appreciate Bachmann's taken seriously. Whether it's giving Duck the correct, gray foot plate to making sure that James's colors for like the cylinders, the boiler support looks bright and black. All those little things really, really do help with making great products. So I am blown away by how fun it is being able to engage with not only modelers and Thomas fans, but with the brand. Up to here with the call, it's been an honor and a privilege being able to inspire people with the work I do. It's been great.
Absolutely. And we're, again, just so grateful, Stephen, for just everything you've provided for us this evening and just over the years on Twitter and YouTube and your blogs. It's just, the possibilities are endless. It just shows. And like one of the biggest observations, like two of the biggest observations I saw is, number one, the amount of people you've worked with, like, on these projects. It just shows you that like this is a collaborative thing. It's not something you just have to do on your own. It's something you could reach out to this person on Twitter, that person on Instagram, this person on YouTube, say, oh, hey, like, I love that 3D printed face. It's so crisply designed. Like, do you have a Shapeways store? How did you make it? And then those are just ways to always, reach out to people and make new friends across the board with in the fandom. And then so that was one observation. Then the other thing is just, that so many of these stunning models that you've shown, you can make out of abundant, resources that aren't the most expensive things. Like the narrow gauge models, for instance, how realistic those look, and they're made out of cardboard stock. It's absolutely miraculous. It looks like it's made out of resin.
Yeah, man.
So he did a great job.
Absolutely. And just thank you so much again for everything. And then Toby's Museum Coach, I told Ken, it's like those are going to be other additional Train World purchases in the coming months whenever they're released. Hopefully, maybe
there are going to be lots of good items. I'm telling you, people are going to buy them and make little contests. I'm going to get them and I'm going to have them be like cars preserved for the Soto Railway Preservation Society. So in my K Cannon, if any of the Indians want to take tourists or railway enthusiasts to different parts around the island to showcase some old branch lines, the industries. When the engines are working, an engine like Emily or Toby can pull a train and show them like his old branch line or whatever, and it's under the society. I'm going to make a little headboard on the very top and keep the body glossy and just spray paint the roof and the undercarriage flat and make it just a bit that more realistic, my little touch, so I can be able to make it the way I want it. And I cannot wait to see any of you who want to get it and make it look cool, how you'll customize it. Because all you'll need is to just give it chain link couplings if you want, and that's it. Flat is cool, and making it glossy, keeping it the glossy will make it look like it's well kept and well preserved as actual museum coach that people would polish. That's why I would keep the glossy body intact. But it's like, it is incredible. I can't wait to see what people will create from, like, if you were inspired by watching this, I just want to say to all the people who were, followers of my YouTube channel for all those years to Twitter and now with even Patreon, my Patreon page, thank you all so much for all the years of being able to engage with you. I really appreciate the love and support. But for all the model makers and everyone who's a bit older who's watching the stream, I am very blessed to be able to connect with Train World and all of you guys who are keeping the model railroading community alive and showcasing really good products and ideas and concepts. It's been a really good show. It's been really great for the community.
Absolutely. Marcus, did you have anything to say?
Well, Stephen, I've been a follower of your Twitter page and YouTube page for a few years now. And honestly, the stuff that you post about photos, videos, some of my favorite stuff because of the amount of work, detail, and clearly passion that you put into it. The narrow gauge stuff is something that has a special place in my heart in particular because I think I was born around the time Series 4 came out, so they were always there, and they kept appearing in the show, forever. And Duncan is one of my favorite characters, one that I hope Bachmann will eventually release. But the video I saw, the first time you showcased your Duncan model, I was just blown away by it. And it is very reminiscent of Series 5 in Railway Series livery, which is very, very, very well done. He had one of the best episodes in Series 5, in my opinion. And so seeing that and seeing what you did with Paxton, that was also really nice because it's nice to see or imagine CGI-based characters if they existed in the model era, especially because a lot of those later CGI characters, a lot of them are really cool. You can't help but wonder, what would this character have been like in that era, and vice versa. Some days I still think, what would Mighty Mac have been like, if he showed up, because he's a very cool looking engine. Probably wouldn't have to worry about the functioning problems of the physical model in CGI because there's probably some technical issues with two chassis working against one another. But
yeah,
it's wonderful to see in photos, on video, meeting you in person and seeing a lot of the stuff that you have put together over the years. It was even better seeing it because I was actually like in front of it, And I did get to see one Thomas prop from the TV show in person. And I will say it was the same feeling seeing your models as when I saw that prop when I was able to, I think 4 years ago.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. That's awesome.
And Ken,
I
was gonna say.
I was holding off the whole show. I just wanted Christian to run things, and it seems like everybody loves the way Christian is running things. So great job, Christian, on tonight. And I just want to say your models are excellent. Wow, unbelievable! I can't believe how, especially the scratch build ones, are just unbelievable, and it's amazing. And I think it's really important for everyone to see out there what you could actually create with your own two hands. It's just unbelievable how realistic it looks. It actually looks like a factory production model. It's like the car showrooms. They always make that concept model before they create something. And your models were actually like that. It was just really cool. The Duncan one was beautiful, really, really neat, and I was pretty amazed by that. And I'm glad Christian brought you on and was able to I guess question and comment on your all your models. And I thought it was really nice. So you do an excellent job. So it was a pleasure having you on the Train World show tonight.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And meeting you for the first time, it's nice to hear that, those comments, because it's fun and it's really a wonderful thing that I love to do. And it's just really cool to take my models and showcase it to a different group of people to show, this is what got me into the hobby. And it's always a really good thing to showcase, and inspire other people, because if I can do this with a few handmade things and a few, supplies and just my imagination, the stuff that I've learned, skills, if you can paint any surface, you can make something look real.
Yes, Stephen, you did a great job, and keep them coming for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Ken, I read in one of your comments earlier, you said there was another portion to the stream, or are we going to call it a night?
Well, it's up to you. I don't know what you have planned. If you wanted to ask Marcus anything, or I did have something if you want to throw it in after. So I'll let you run things and then chime in.
All right. Marcus, what was I going to say? What... We talked about, I did have one other question for you, but I lost it. I'm sorry to think about this. You've been an avid Bachmann collector for many years, and then helping out Train World, obviously with Thomas products throughout the years. Did you want to talk about, I guess, your experiences with how Bachmann has helped you as an individual? Because we talked about how Thomas in particular has helped you over the years, or like what kept you interested in it, but like what specifically, I guess, keeps you engaged in terms of the modeling aspect of it?
Well, Um, Bachmann has helped me learn about the running and operation of model trains. I've only ever really, with the exception of the Percy set behind me by Lionel, I've stuck with HO scale purely because the Thomas models that Bachmann makes were at the time available in only HO, so I stuck with it. So I learned, like, how to figure out a track layout, what type of sections you need, wiring, not anything crazy, but like basic wiring, because unfortunately, like a lot of the modelers, such as Steven and many others on Twitter, YouTube, and what have you, I don't have a space for like a permanent layout or even just like a table to just keep a layout on. I basically, whenever I feel like it, when I visit my grandparents, I take them out of storage. I set it up on the floor. It's basically 2 ovals, and I run the models. Sometimes I film some videos, and that, for me personally, that's enough because it's all I'm able to do at the moment. Maybe one day I'll be able to do more. Maybe I can get, customizations either done by myself or with the help of others. But just that alone, it's an escape. And it takes me away from sometimes the difficulties of, real life. And it just brings me back to a time that, although I can't really go back to it, it's like a middle ground. Like when I run the models, when I'm at my grandparents' place, I just immediately hear the sounds, the voices of, as I mentioned earlier, Alec Baldwin, Ringo Starr, George Carlin, just in my head. I go back to that time, and it's just a good feeling. So what Bachmann specifically does, along with Thomas and, putting aside Thomas, just brings me back to a simpler time, brings me back to an easier part of life. And, aside from Thomas, I don't want to talk too much about this in particular, but I'm a fan of comic books and superheroes along with that. Mm-hmm. And going to conventions is a way that I've learned to interact with people who are into that same thing. And then by going to Northlands and then just interacting on Twitter with you, Christian, or with you, Steven, or anyone else that's watching this right now, that I've interacted, helps me talk to people who are into the Thomas and Friends world. And it's just, it's a good feeling knowing that there's people out there who like the same things that you like, and you don't feel weird about it. And it's just something that I think we all need. We all have some type of escape. For us, it's modeling and Thomas the Tank Engine. It's just an escape, and we all need that sometimes. And it brings people together more than it pushes people apart, if you ask me honestly. Like, there's not really been a lot of chances where I could say openly why Thomas has the effect it does. But now that I'm, talking with people who all have had an experience with it from a personal level, from a business level, it's funny how the effect it has today differs from when they first tried to introduce it to the States. Because I was listening to a podcast on the way home from work, and a point in the podcast was made by one of the producers from Shining Time Station. He tried to suggest Thomas as a thing to introduce to the United States, and they immediately shut down the idea. They said it would never work, it'll never catch on, it's just a thing only the people in the UK would get. And how wrong was that person? Because how much Thomas and Friends merchandise sells in Train World alone, yeah. Christian, effect that it has in your life, Steven, the effect that Thomas has had in your life and led you to modeling and anything else outside of Thomas, and the effect it's had on me and learning about, other things about the actors who have been featured in it, and, learning about trains in general. Whoever said that it wasn't going to catch on back in 1989, they were sadly mistaken.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thomas has definitely touched a lot of people's lives, and it continues to be a big part of the world and our culture today. And Christian, one last thing before you start signing off here. I actually found this in my desk. It was it's a product I can't sell. It's bad packaging. I'm not even sure if the decoder works. But I don't know. I'll ship it to someone if they have any interest to see if it works or not. Then if it does, you got a free decoder. If not, then sorry, out of luck. But it's a Thomas and Friends large scale DCC sound module for the Bachmann large scale Thomas and Friends. So put in the chat. I'll let Christian think of the code word and then the zip code. So Christian, if you want to come up with a code, what do you think you should have people put in the chat for this?
Okay, just like a random word?
Random word.
Okay, DCC.
Okay, put in the chat DCC and the zip code, and we'll pick out a winner after all the comments are in. We'll ship it out, and hopefully it works for you. I'm pretty sure it does, but who knows? But that was our little freebie for tonight.
Nice. Excellent.
And I just want to say, Marcus, just thank you for sharing that. Because like those are just such important words for just everyone on the stream watching tonight, and just in general who perhaps will watch the stream at a later point if they had work or were just busy at this time or sleeping at this time, depending on where in the world they are. So, just thank you for those words, because
if I may say one last thing in relation to what I just said, for anyone who has, whether it's Thomas the Tank Engine, whether it's model railroading, whether it's any type of hobby of any sort, no matter what it is, if you have ever been made fun of because of something you like, of any of the things I mentioned or any of the things I haven't mentioned, do not listen to them. You do what makes you happy. It doesn't matter what it is that makes you happy, as long as you're happy and not harming anyone around you or yourself.
Absolutely.
It's the greatest feeling in the world to be doing something good for others, for yourself. Thomas the Tank Engine is just an example of one of those things that has brought joy to everyone, has brought memories that people will never forget that has happened in their lives. My family, they thought I was borderline crazy sometimes for how obsessed I was with this show, like my own family. But over time, I wasn't harming anybody. I was being happy. And they got the message and they left me alone about it. When I told them I was working in Train World one day, they said, you know what, I absolutely expect that. And they are just glad that I'm happy. And it's not something to be ashamed of. It's something that you should be happy, because there are some people in this world who don't have that thing that makes them happy. But maybe one day they'll find it. But for us, we found it. And to anyone out there who feels like they're wrong for liking a certain thing, you're not. Especially if it's Thomas. Keep liking Thomas. Keep Thomas alive. Keep model railroading alive. Keep the rail fanning, whatever train-related thing. Keep it alive, because years from now, there'll be other people that need it, and they have to be introduced to it some way, shape, or form. So keep it going.
Preach, Marcus, preach.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I find it hard to believe that this stream has now been over an hour and a half long. Unbelievable.
We can keep going.
We can. I mean, I know, Steven, you're a teacher, and Ken, I know you have early starts too. All of you guys have early starts, including myself, so we can't go like all night, but like I would if I could. But yeah, thank you again, Steven, again for showing your modeling. It's just absolutely been an honor, and Marcus sharing your thoughts as well. And Ken, I'm going to round it right back to you to close off the stream.
No, well, Christian, I want you to learn and get a feel of these things. So I'll let you close it out. But thank you, Stephen, Marcus, for joining us, and Christian, you're doing an excellent job.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So with that, I'll let Christian close it out.
All right,
buddy.
And last thing is just thank you very much to all the viewers who have sat through the past 90 minutes, and just hopefully I hope that you've been inspired, and just keep the spirit of Thomas going one way or another, because like Marcus said, there's nothing wrong for liking it, and Stephen has provided countless tips for you to enhance your modeling skills altogether and to get into model railroading. It seems intimidating at first, but when you sit down and you try out things one thing at a time, you see that anything is possible. Just keep the spirit going, keep the motivation going, keep the faith going.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say. And with that, have a great night, everyone.
Good night,
Bye, everybody. Y'all take care.
Till next time.